Followers of Jesus are people who must choose to follow. Followers are not disciples. We see that many people were followers of Jesus, but just because you're a follower of Jesus, just because you keep up on what Jesus is doing, just because you're where Jesus is at, does not make you a disciple of Jesus. And maybe you say, well, I'm a disciple, but being a disciple, we see that it doesn't make you an apostle. There are different levels of following Jesus. The first step is that you have to hear the words of Jesus and make a decision that you want to get to know who Jesus is. A lot of times people think that when the disciples were called that they just automatically threw down their nets and they went and followed Jesus. But if you look in John's gospel, you will find that they had already had a relationship with Jesus. They had already spoken to Jesus before, because one of the things that they wanted to know about Jesus is, tell me where you live. I want to come see where your house is. I want to see where you live. The world today, I believe that the world today is wanting to know, where are the Christians living today? They don't want to know the location of your house, but they are wanting to know, how is it that you live in this world that we are living in? We see that the infamous are invited to accompany Jesus, because the Bible says he said, come follow me. But we also see that the infamous must tear themselves away from what they are doing. The word there for leaving, a lot of times when we think about leaving, we think it's just you're walking away, or you're going to move in a new direction. We're going to be leaving. But this word in the Greek, it doesn't mean leaving the way we think of it. The word for leaving here actually comes from a root word which means a remnant. A remnant is something which has come from something which is larger, a larger piece. Something which has been left over. I don't know a lot about Matthew's life. There's not a lot said about Matthew in the Gospels, but we do realize some things about Matthew that we realize that, one, he was one who had been left. The people in his community, they had wanted nothing to do with him because he had sided with the Romans. He was a man who was by himself. He had been left. He had been a part of a larger community. He had been part of something much larger, but today he is just a remnant. He is just a little piece that has been left. His community has probably ripped him from the membership rolls of the synagogue. They have probably tossed him aside and wanted nothing to do with him. He has been torn away. Now he has taken his life and he has put everything that he can, every bit of strength he has into his career. He is now a tax collector for the Romans, and he is a tax collector that I think in my mind he is doing a great job. He is making more money for the Romans than he even needs to. He's getting to keep the excess that he raises for them. He is a man who has poured his life into this. He is at the tax booth when Jesus finds him. He is sitting. He is comfortable where he is at. He doesn't even care about the fact that the people around him hate him and despise him. He's come to grips with who he is. He understands what the world thinks of him, and that's who he is going to be. But one day there is a man that comes walking down the road, and as that man comes walking down the road, he sees something different than the rest of the world saw. He didn't see a tax collector. He saw what he could be if he would begin to follow him. I hope that as the church we can realize that there are people all around us that's been torn apart from their families, from society, that they want nothing to do with them, but there is a God who loves and cares for them. And even though they may be torn away from their families and have been left as just a little small remnant to themselves, there is a God. There is a God who sees something completely different than what they are and the way the world sees them. The Bible says, in leaving everything, he arose and followed him. The name Levi means attached. It comes from when Leah was trying to gain the love Jacob. And when this child was born, she named him Levi. Levi was a man attached to the government. Levi was a man attached to his job. Levi was a man attached to materialism because he had something that he left. But you'll see in the next chapter, in chapter 6, I like this. You see that when Jesus is calling the disciples, he no longer calls him Levi. He calls him Matthew. Jesus changes the name of Matthew. And the name Matthew means that I am a gift of Jehovah. Let me tell you today, when people see a tax collector, when somebody sees someone who has absolutely no value or no worth to anyone anymore, God sees my gift. Jesus sees the gift of God. We also see that the infamous are welcomed by Jesus. Jesus is reclining at a table with them, the Bible says in Luke 5:29. Levi made a great feast in his house, and there was a large company of tax collectors and others reclining at a table. I want to just point something out to you, that there are many that have used this verse to condone ministries that have allowed them to mingle with the sinful. But I want you to notice that in verse 29, Matthew says it a little differently in Matthew 9:10. And it says, as Jesus reclined at table in the house, behold, many tax collectors and sinners came to Jesus. They came to Jesus. You wouldn't have found Jesus hanging out in the local bar or going and starting a beer ministry in order to reach the sinner. You see, it is not what we have in common with the sinner that will draw people to Jesus. It is what we do not have in common with the sinner that will draw people to Jesus. The world is looking for something different than what they see around them. And my Jesus had a personality that the sinful like to be around Jesus.